Coventry Law Centre is at the heart of a city of over 300,000 people. Coventry is a city of contrasts. There are leafy, prosperous suburbs, but there are also areas of the city where many people live on the poverty line. 17% of people in Coventry live in the top 10 most deprived neighbourhoods nationally. Coventry Law Centre is a charity providing free legal advice and representation in court. We focus on the legal rights that are there to protect the poor and the vulnerable. We provide specialist advice to clients referred from other advice agencies in the city. This is all now threatened by government proposals to cut legal aid. Unless they can pay for a solicitor, people will have to represent themselves in tribunal and court. We believe this will be very difficult for many of our clients because the cases we take on are frequently complex and require legal arguments to be made.
A lot of the member organisations, Age Concerns, Citizens Advice Bureau, the community-based organisations, they primarily give the first contact. That's where people will go to when they've first got a problem. And a lot of the time they will have their issues resolved at that level, but there will be times when it needs to get referred to the next level up. So Coventry Law Centre is very pivotal within that partnership.
Here at Coventry CAB we deal with a large number of clients every week. And a larger number of inquiries are dealt with by our volunteer team. But we do need recourse to specialist advice provided by either the Law Centre or through our caseworkers in the Bureau. Without that specialist advice, we cannot help all of the clients that need it, and particularly the clients that are most vulnerable. We're concerned that if we lose specialist advice provision, we won't be able to have the key legal interventions necessary to move a case on.
At Coventry University Students' Union Advice Centre, we deal with over 5,000 inquiries a year from our students. We refer students onto the Law Centre with complex inquiries, things like immigration and community care law.
For example, we called in the community care solicitors to assist us to help with Libyan students whose funding was affected by the conflict in their home country. This was invaluable support to the students, and they wouldn't have been able to continue with their course had this funding not been provided to them.
The work of Coventry Law Centre changes lives. We employ solicitors and expert advisors to use the law to provide a voice for those who are unable to protect themselves.
We represent mainly people who are in low-paid employment, who lose their jobs or have problems while they're at work. The government has said that they'll be able to get help from unions or from solicitors that do no win, no fee. But because many people work for small employers or are low pay, often they're not in unions, and their compensation is not going to be enough that a commercial high street practice would be interested in.
I sought legal help through other aspects, i.e. union and private solicitors. I was refused by the union, and then through the solicitors they either wanted £5,000 or £6,000 costs, which I couldn't afford, or on a no win, no fee, I'd have lost over half of any winnings I'd have got from any case.
Most employers will have legal representation, and therefore I think that's unfair that an employer, when they haven't been paying the national minimum wage or haven't been giving people rest breaks or have just sacked them unfairly, will have an opportunity to have a lawyer in a tribunal. But if the government has its way, the ordinary hard-working employee won't have anybody to represent them.
So I ended up at the Law Centre. After seeing all the documents and that, I could never ever took this case on myself. So with Elaine's help, we progressed and we managed to end up with a reasonable settlement at the end of the day.
£1,000, £2,000, £3,000 for a family who has suddenly found themselves without an income is an enormous amount of money and has a great impact on their lives.
And that's helped my family in certain aspects of our lives.
Coventry Carers Centre has had a long-standing partnership working arrangement with the Law Centre. We have had a regular monthly surgery where carers can talk to a lawyer free, actually at the Carers Centre. The importance of the Law Centre is to ensure that carers receive advice with respect to community care support, and obviously the Law Centre will often advocate on behalf of the carer. But it's not just community care law that's important. Often carers have difficulties, for example, with employment issues. Carers can have issues in terms of trying to combine their caring role with actually holding down a full-time job. It's important for carers to have this access free to a lawyer, because often carers wouldn't necessarily have the finances or the wherewithal, for that matter, in order to get the support that they require to ensure that their rights are upheld.
The housing team deals with over 600 clients per year, and the sort of cases that we deal with include assisting people who are facing repossession of their homes. We also deal with people whose landlords have breached their tenancy, for example, by failing to keep the property in good repair.
I used to live in a private accommodation through Coventry Housing, the letting agency. They treated me really horrible. Holes in the roof, leaks through the roof, broken doors. The front garden was on the slope. The back garden was basically all stone. So Amanguru, the caseworker, writ letters to home finder writ letters back. Eventually I got put on high priority. I eventually offered a property where I'm living now. Even got a walk-in shower.
Under the government's proposed cuts, however, only those people who have the most critical needs, such as those who are actually being made homeless, will be eligible for legal aid.
I was referred to the Law Centre from my housing officer. I tried to get help and to sort my problems out on my own, but I came to a full stop.
Without any help, those people may find that their problems increase and escalate to the point at which they reach a crisis.
I work with a number of vulnerable people, all of whom have some kind of mental health issue or another, and almost all of whom have a landlord of some sort. Either it's a social landlord or a private landlord. All of those people have received free legal help because of community legal services funding. They would not, in any case, in any one of those cases, otherwise have been able to afford legal representation.
Early intervention, backed by sound legal advice, is the best way to avoid these sorts of problems arising.
We deal with people who are struggling to cope with debt, with their financial situation. At times they can come into us upset, stressed, and feel like it's a last resort.
I've been helped so much, more than what I realised. I was in a lot of debt.
The debt team at Coventry Law Centre dealt with over 400 clients last year. We dealt with over £1.5 million worth of debt.
I went to see Peter from the Law Centre, and he helped sort everything out. All the debt made me ill. I don't know what I would have done.
We feel these proposals will treat people unfairly in crisis and push more people to the edge of making payments on debts they shouldn't do, which they're not liable for.
If the cuts were made and there wasn't that service, then people would have nowhere to go. We're all about sustaining the tenancies and obviously supporting the customer within their homes. Without having that service, then they're not going to have anywhere to go to independent of their landlord.
Community care involves helping those people who need assistance to obtain, for example, care at home, appropriate residential home placement, or adaptations to their homes. We also assist people to challenge what they believe to be unreasonable decisions on the part of their local authority.
I'm Claire Whiteman. I work at Grapevine, which is a charity in Coventry working with people with a learning disability. And the people we serve, which includes those who are profoundly and multiply disabled, can be very vulnerable, and the law gives them protection. But when things go wrong, they need expert help to enjoy that protection. And the Law Centre is providing that expert help through its solicitors.
Legal aid helps the most vulnerable in our society to have a voice in being able to challenge policies and procedures that are just not right and fighting the David and Goliath situations. Coventry Law Centre has supported my sister Colleen to achieve not only independence but to currently challenge the personal contributions and assessments that the local governments have set. It's an invaluable service not only to my sister Colleen and has been to us as a family, but to the most vulnerable people in our society. And without the help and support of legal aid, we would never have been able to achieve what we have, and Colleen would not be living the life that she is living today.
Although it is proposed that community care will remain within the scope of legal aid, the planned cuts to most of the other areas will have a massively detrimental impact upon our client base. Often our clients will not simply seek advice in relation to one problem, but a whole series of issues. One of the fundamental differences between the approach of the Law Centre and that of a private solicitor's firm is the holistic approach we offer to clients.
And what we're very concerned about is whether people with a learning disability who are often an unheard voice, how are they going to get protection? How are they going to challenge decisions that are being made about them?
A lot of work that I do is with children and with minors. I'll put everything in writing, what I've explained to you today.
Most immigration cases will involve families and children. That means that many will involve complex human rights arguments. People who are in the UK on the basis of marriage and who have become subject to domestic violence. And people who have been trafficked to the UK, such as women and children, for the purposes of either forced labour or sexual slavery, will no longer be eligible for free legal advice.
Although domestic violence agencies may provide short-term material support, the overriding concern for such victims is to regularise their immigration status. There is a right in such cases to apply for settlement in the UK where a marriage has broken down in its probationary period due to domestic violence. A successful application will entail representations underlining the intersection between the right to settlement under the immigration rules, the victim's right to a family life in human rights law, and the UK's obligations following the full ratification of the Convention of the Rights of the Child. A set of legal representations pulling these strands together necessitates legal expertise and would be beyond the scope of domestic violence agencies or other voluntary sector organisations.
We're a local charity for older people, offering a wide range of services. One of the things that's core to what we do is information and advice. And so we advise older people of their rights and entitlements. We're particularly concerned about the proposed cuts to legal aid for the help we get to help people appeal from Coventry Law Centre. People are reluctant enough to claim in the first place, they're even more reluctant to make an appeal. And so if these proposed cuts go through, a lot of older people won't then get what they're entitled to, which they use to maintain their independence. And there's been lots of evidence to show that that actually stops them needing higher level, more expensive services.
We receive referrals from all the local advice centres, and our main task is representing at appeal tribunals. In Coventry at the moment there are 4,000 appeals waiting to be heard. We do have a high rate of success at 70 to 80% if we represent at the hearing. This compares with people who have paper hearings where it's only 10 to 11% success rate, or at people who attend the tribunal without a representative, which is approximately 40 to 50%.
If they stop the funding, there's going to be a lot of people that's in my position, probably not as good as me and can manage the way through the paperwork, that will just not have any help. It's terrible. There will be people suffering if it goes 100%.
Yeah, we'd ask that the budget at least stays the same or even is increased, because we provide a valuable service to the poorest members of the community in the Coventry area.
I've been helped so much, more than what I realised, and it was like a big weight off my shoulders.
We can save the government money by dealing with debts at an early stage. We prevent court hearings by negotiating with creditors and intervening to deal with those debts before it goes to the court hearing.
So without the expertise provided by the Law Centre, the protection that the law gives people is really meaningless, and people will have to represent themselves at a tribunal or at court, and the people we serve who, as I said, can be profoundly disabled just won't be able to do that.
People would be subject to exploitation, wrongful evictions in my view. Without the right to fight back, they'd lose their voice.
So if the Law Centre wasn't here, it'd be like me and other people like that wouldn't know where to go to get the help.
So I'm horrified at these proposed cuts to legal aid. They could have a very detrimental effect on the quality of life for older people, and I strongly hope the government will reconsider. I'd urge them to do so.
As one of our clients said, the centre has proved that they are there for the helpless and voiceless. Thank you for your kindness and sincere commitment to the work you do. What will happen to the helpless and voiceless in the future?